It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce Secretary Sullivan. Rick Sullivan is Secretary of the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. What that means is he controls the Commonwealth's 6 environmental, natural resource, and energy regulatory agencies: the Department of Environmental Protection, Public Utilities, Energy Resources, Conservation and Recreation, Ag, and Fish and Game, right? You know, he is really instrumental in what we're doing here. Prior to that role, Rick was 13 and a half years as mayor of Westfield, graduate of Westfield High School, holds degrees from Bates College and Western New England School of Law. And I got to tell you, without Rick's leadership, active engagement, and support, this doesn't happen. He really is both the visible leader behind this, and we really thank him for being here. So please, Rick Sullivan.
Thank you, Earl. Thank you, and Gretchen, thank you for everybody being very flexible here today. But I think that's what we do in government, and that's what we're going to do in water innovation. We need to be flexible and willing to change. And I appreciate that effort. I also want to specifically thank Earl and the entire steering committee, who has worked so hard over the last really 2 years to bring us to this point today. Certainly want to thank everybody from Northeastern, particularly Provost Stephen Director, who's just been a great and gracious host last night and today, really opening up the campus, and the hospitality has been greatly appreciated. I do want to give a special shout out to David Goodtree, who was with us really on day one, and I think most everybody in this room has had at least one conversation, an email, or a contact with David, and it won't be the first or the last time, but really from his volunteer effort and his commitment to water innovation has really brought us here today, so I wanted to specifically thank David. And I do have a number of my team that is here today. Alicia Barton, who's the CEO of the Clean Energy Center, where water innovation will rest for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Ken Kimmel is the commissioner at DEP. He is here. Fred Lasky is the executive director at the MWRA, and I know there are a lot of people that would like to talk to Fred, so you have a captive audience with him here today as well. And a special shout out to Phil Griffiths, who was at the time a couple of years ago, up until very recently, was my undersecretary for the environment. Their efforts have really brought us here today. I also want to introduce Michael Murphy, who has been brought on by the CEC to focus on growing the water cluster and water innovation and having the water discussion in Massachusetts. Michael is focused on nothing but growing the water cluster here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and we're excited about that. And I personally wanted to just recognize and give some shout outs to Senator Jamie Eldridge, who's here, and Representative Carolyn Dykema, who have been true leaders in the House and Senate on our behalf and on all issues of water, the environment, investment in water and the infrastructure that's needed, and they're here today. So thank you for your support and your advocacy. This is a charge. I can't tell you how excited I am here today for a number of different reasons. Because it was 2 years ago on a trip to Israel where I was fortunate to be with the governor when we went to Israel on the first trade mission. And we were in a room probably about this size with actually a few more people in it than this. And being in the innovation nation of Israel, heard a number of entrepreneurs, a number of companies, individuals who were working on cutting edge technologies and innovation in the field of water. And their biggest charge to us or ask of us is we need a place that we can take our ideas, take our inventions, take our innovations, and create partnerships with companies so that we can market and go global, so that we can grow in the field of water. We need a trading partner. Massachusetts in particular is a natural trading partner with the state of Israel, so they were asking us to become that partner. Governor Patrick turned to me, I was on the job about a week and a half, and said, make that happen in Massachusetts. So because of his leadership and his vision, we set out to create a water cluster in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Now, when we came back to Boston and I pulled in David and John Lenonhart from MIT and Phil Griffiths, it was like, okay, what does a water cluster even look like in Massachusetts? And we found that there were already, in many ways, shape, or form, there was already a water cluster here. There was already a $4 to $5 billion water industry in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But it had not been convened, it had not been defined, it had not been marketed, it had not been innovated here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So Governor Patrick, on two really staples of his administration, first and foremost, understanding what our generational responsibility is to leave Massachusetts in a better place that we found her. We looked at the infrastructure, and one of the comments at the dinner last night at my table was, you know, our parents and grandparents put in the water infrastructure in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. What is our generation going to do for the next generation? And right now, all we're doing for the most part is handing them a bill and say, here, fix it or replace it. It's our responsibility to innovate it and grow it and improve it for the next generation. And where better to do that in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, because Governor Patrick has set a framework and recognized that the economy of Massachusetts is built on education, infrastructure, and innovation. What better industry, what better cluster calls out for that kind of leadership in those three fields than that of water? It is a natural sweet spot, if you will, for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. What happens in water innovation can change not only the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, but the country, and quite frankly, if I can be bold enough, the world. We are $4 to $5 billion industry here in Massachusetts today. That can grow exponentially. We have the talent and the innovation in this room right here today. Governor, this is a $4 to $5 billion face of the water cluster in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, whose best days are ahead of us. And because of the leadership of Governor Patrick, we are here today. We are poised to grow this. We are poised to have the water cluster in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts become the new and most exciting sector that we have, creating hundreds and thousands of jobs right here based out of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And because of his leadership, we are here today, and it is my honor to introduce our governor, Governor Deval Patrick.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you. No one who arrives this late deserves a standing ovation. Thank you nonetheless, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for your very warm introduction, your very thorough covering of the subject matter. I knew if I were late enough that Secretary Sullivan would basically give my speech for me. But I really appreciate your exceptional leadership of our energy and environment agenda. And I will just try to build on the points that you made. I want to thank all of you for being here this morning and for your commitment to growing the water industry cluster here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I want to especially thank David Goodtree. Where are you, David? There you are. Who has been such a marvelous partner in organizing around this subject matter. And I want to acknowledge and thank Gretchen McLean. Gretchen, thank you so much. I think you had an opportunity to make your remarks already, but let me just, am I right? Not yet? Soon? We put it? Come on, brief me, for God's sake. Okay, so you will hear from Gretchen in just a moment. Gretchen is the CEO of Xylem, am I saying it right? Of Xylem, and has become a founding member of the cluster, and we very much appreciate that. I wanted to come by today to give you just a word or two about sort of the context in which the water cluster is developing right now, and to describe what we're trying to do in Massachusetts as a whole and how the water industry cluster fits in it in important ways. As many of you know, and as the Secretary said, we have a growth strategy here in the Commonwealth based on three things: on education, on innovation, and on infrastructure. Education, because it's our calling card around the world. There are hundreds of colleges and universities within a 90-minute drive of where we sit right now. That creates an unusual concentration of brain power and potential. And brain power is as important here to us in Massachusetts as corn is to Iowa and coal is to West Virginia. It is our natural resource. And so we have to be about cultivating it and encouraging it and supporting it in a variety of ways. So, for example, in K-12, we've made the largest investments in public schools in the history of the Commonwealth, even when the bottom was falling out of our economy. In many respects, enrollment and performance is up in our public colleges and universities. We're investing again in facilities at public colleges and universities, and we have an unusual level of collaboration between public and private higher ed, in some ways unprecedented. So education first and foremost. Innovation, what is that? There are certain industries that depend on a concentration of brain power as their life source. The life sciences and biotech is an example. Clean and alternative energy is another example. The digital technology industry, which has lots of components, as you know, robotics, gaming, nanotechnology, communications, big data, and cybersecurity. Because we are making more of the things we invent, precision manufacturing is coming back as well, which is incredibly exciting. So innovation, there are, as I say, industries that depend on the kind of natural resource we have in brain power, and we do what we can to cultivate and encourage those industries. That's where most of our growth has come. And then finally, infrastructure, which I always describe as the unglamorous work of governing, but it supports everything else. It's roads, rails, and bridges. It's the kind of thing that made me late to get here this morning. It's broadband, which until this year has not been available to some nearly 150 different communities in the Commonwealth. That ends this year. I wonder how many of you can imagine doing what you do without access to high-speed internet. It's also, frankly, healthcare as another enabler of for growth and for participation successfully in the workforce. So, education, innovation, infrastructure. We don't just talk about these things; we invest in them. Why? Not because government can or should presume to substitute for the private sector. That is not the point. The point is that just like in the private sector, if we want growth, we have to invest. And that means investing time and money and ideas and encouragement. And if we want that future to be bright, we have to shape it rather than leave it to chance. The results so far have been very, very promising indeed. We're number one in the nation in student achievement, in the top 5 in the world in math and science. Enrollment, as I mentioned, is up for public colleges and universities. We've come out of recession faster than most other states. We're growing twice as fast as the national growth rate. In the life sciences, for example, some $300 million of public investment over the last 5 years has generated well over $1 billion of private investment and created thousands and thousands of jobs. We've met our goals for solar energy 4 years ahead of schedule. We're ranked first nationally in energy efficiency, and we've increased the amount of wind power in the state some 40-fold. We have a thriving clean energy economy with over 70,000 people working in it and some 5,000 businesses. The private sector invests more dollars per capita in Massachusetts clean tech businesses than in any other state in America, and I'm happy to say that as we have brought the public component to this and the public investment with the partnership and support of our colleagues in the legislature, and I saw the senator a second ago. Where are you, Senator? Great. Nice to see you. Is there anyone here from the House? Carolyn is here. Excuse me, Carolyn. I'm looking right at you. Great partners here and representative of others. We have consistently, at the same time, managed our budgets well and kept them in balance and achieved the highest bond rating in the history of the Commonwealth. What we're trying to do is marry brain power, our natural resource, with commerce through innovation. It's not that complicated, but it is a winning formula, and we've done it with discipline, and we mean to continue to do it with discipline. We want to be home to or home away from home for any industry whose model has those needs. And that's why we believe the water technology industry has a natural place here in Massachusetts. Humankind needs innovation in water technology, as the Secretary was saying. And that innovation will depend on brain power and a culture of prudent risk-taking, investment, collaboration, and policy support. In other words, that's why I'm here today. 2 years ago, as the Secretary mentioned, I led an economic development mission to Israel. I was accompanied on that mission by an extraordinary group of civic and business leaders representing all sectors of Massachusetts, business and government, education and nonprofit. It was a productive visit, and it is still producing mutual benefits. Massachusetts and Israel have, I think, a special compatibility. We are both centers of innovation with economies driven by education and entrepreneurship. For both, our greatest natural resource is brain power. During that mission, as the Secretary said, I told you he'd already given the speech that I intended to, the idea of cultivating a water industry cluster here in Massachusetts was born. Because of that cooperation between leaders in industry, academia, and the public and private sector, Massachusetts is now at the center of the clean energy revolution and the next big push in water innovation. Secretary Sullivan and his team have the point. You in the private sector have the opportunity. Let's all make the most of it. Thank you very much for getting together today and for having me.